Welcome back, everyone, to Tech Talk, the officially unofficial Transformers TCG podcast. I'm joined, as always, by Scott of VectorSigma.info, and I'll be honest, I thought at the beginning of this week it was going to be a nice, calm, short, relaxing show, and that didn't happen.
I thought as of 2 days ago we'd be fine, but
yeah, it very quickly ramped up. So before we dive into yet another marathon session, I'm going to preload a short break so I can play the pre-recorded video about upcoming events. Welcome back, everyone. You've already heard the usual greeting for the beginning of Tech Talk, but this is a pre-recorded segment just to talk a little bit about a few events that are coming up in the very near future. We wanted to give a shout out to Gaming vs. Cancer. Gaming vs. Cancer is a convention held at the University of Southampton Highfield campus, and it's going to be on the weekend of March 21st and 22nd. This convention started in 2013 as Clicks for Cancer and has since then raised £28,000 or $36,000 for Cancer Research UK. If you have the opportunity, definitely check out this event. We're going to do our best to have all of the appropriate links in the description of this video and podcast. One other event we wanted to give a shout out to is the 7th annual Hunter Burton Memorial Open. This particular event is focused on raising suicide awareness. Whereas in the past it was primarily based in Magic the Gathering, now it's going to be expanding to include other games, the Transformers TCG among them. The Transformers portion is scheduled to take place on Saturday, March 28th, and this is another worthwhile cause that if you have the opportunity to, you should consider supporting. One additional event that we wanted to call out is, well, our own, and that is the Transformers TCG Grand Tournament. Now, we don't have a charity attached to this particular one this time around, although we have run them in the past. Instead, we wanted to call this out because, A, Top Deck has made a lot of efforts to support the community in the past. The prizes are fantastic, but additionally, we're tacking on a little bit extra. As we discussed on previous shows, there's going to be Origins passes added on for the culmination event. And then there are chances to win raffles leading up to that event for the same thing, that is Origins passes. So if you have the opportunity, come on down. These are going to be monthly events. We're always looking for new people. And we are back, and as we are segueing from those events to other events, I wanted to give a quick shout out to Neil from the Shuffle Bus for taking down Legendary Wolf's Masterpiece event. That's actually the first topic on the list. Wanted to give him a shout out, but I also thought it was really cool that it's an event that was giving away toys. We did see that at EI. Thank you, wife. My wife is very carefully handing me something very hot. It's tea, because I'm going to need some caffeine or I'm not making it through this recording, Scott.
Understand.
So, thank you, wife. As I was saying, Legendary Wolf ran this Masterpiece event, which was also streamed. So there's a number of different facets that I wanted to call attention to. This was a really cool event, and there were a lot of things that there are to discuss. We're only going to cursory go over them. So obviously, as I said, shout out to Neil for taking it down. I think it's really cool that there are toys involved because that is kind of the genesis of this thing that we all know and love. I know that's not necessarily everybody's primary goal. Of course, everybody would prefer certain types of green paper. I guess depending on what country you're from, maybe it's a different color. But things that add numbers to your bank account. But I do think it's awesome to have toys as part of the prizes. Do you care at all, Scott? I know Dan's not too excited about having plastic clogging up his living room, but would you ever be interested in winning one of these things?
I mean, we're fortunate that we live in Philadelphia, so when Dan won, he was able to just put it in the car. But I mean, like, I think if I had to travel to an event and had to take back something of that size, I would probably just be looking to offload it right away. But I mean, like, it's not a bad thing. It's just that, like, I wouldn't want to have to travel with it because it would probably, I don't know, cost me an extra $50 to take home or something like that. So
yeah, it's kind of in the same vein as an actual physical trophy. I mean, the Masterpieces, I have my Masterpiece Soundwave. It happened to be on my desk anyway. So, and it's not box-wise, like it's not that big. Like you could fit it in a suitcase, but depending on what your travel arrangements are, I could certainly see the issue. The other thing that I wanted to call out, as I mentioned, was the fact that it was actually streamed, which I think is cool. I mean, we do our show live streams here on Twitch. A number of other official first-party events, including EI, were streamed. You had the chance to cast part of it, Scott, and then also at the PPG events. Is this something in general that you think is worthwhile going forward, having the stream so people can watch from home?
Yeah, I mean, I watched it, so I mean, like, obviously, any way to get live games out there is positive.
Right.
You know, it would, yeah, no reason not to. I mean, it's obviously rough to have it on, like, you know, I don't know how many Saturday and Sunday afternoons people were just sitting around watching Twitch, but who knows? I mean, like, maybe they were. I don't know. You know, there weren't that many people watching it, but I don't know that there was that much advanced knowledge of it anyway.
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't know until it was already live and a couple rounds in, I think, and it was posted in Discord, and then I jumped in because it was, you know, I happened to be around doing other stuff around the house, so I was checking in and out when the opportunity arose. I think this sort of thing, it also has the advantage of not just being the live form, but also it's just more archived video for people to watch after the fact. So like you can just rip that right from Twitch and throw it on YouTube, for example. So
yeah, that's positive.
But again, shout out to Neil. Just wanted to bring up the event real quick because I thought it was pretty cool. Anything else you want to add on, Scott, before we dive into our marathon?
No, there's just too much.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to dive right in. There's a lot of cards. They're grouped, as you can see on the topic list, and we'll call them out as we usually do going through. So, first one up is actually a recent reveal, Concealing Contrails. So this is a 1 black pip, 1 black plain pip. I'll find a more eloquent way to put that. It's secret action. It's revealed when one of your characters defends and you flip battle cards. And when it's revealed, the defender gets +1 defense until the end of battle for each black pip you flipped. Now, to be honest, I love the concept of this because when we first saw Flamefeather, I think it was, in Siege 1, the fire con that turned oranges into blues effectively. It didn't literally do it, but it utilized your oranges as blues on defense. I thought that was a really cool concept. It seemed like an obvious way to take black pips so that way you could actually utilize them in a different fashion because, well, we've talked a lot about the drawbacks of black pips in the past, and this kind of resolves some of it. The issue being, of course, that you have to draw this. You have to actually play it, and then I don't know if this is really what a plain deck wants at the moment. Maybe it does if it's trying to do the bold 4 thing, blue black, and then find these sort of pips. Do you like this thing, Scott? Is this something you're looking forward to playing with?
So I assume, like, if you flip another one of these, even if you're not a plain, you still get +2 defense, right? It's another one of those, like, as long as you flip it, even if it's not active, the pip isn't active, you still get the buff, right?
When the defender gets +1 defense until end of battle for each black pip you flipped. I would believe that if you flipped one of this card after you activated this, you would get 2 defense because it's still a black pip. It just doesn't count for the pierce part.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fine. I mean, the problem is that, like, I guess if you're a dedicated blue-black deck, like, I guess, like, you would just turn all your blue-blacks into double blues.
Yeah.
So I guess you would run, like, a couple of them. I mean, we're going to talk about a card later that, like, I think you forces you to diversify your secret actions anyway. So that I think in the right deck like that, it's going to be a powerful addition. But I just don't know. Like, I mean, it's obviously on the surface a fine card. I just don't know, like, what. Like, a lot of the dedicated black decks basically are the equivalent of orange, where they don't have a lot of defense.
Right.
So if you're in that situation, having this is probably not going to make that big of a deal, but maybe it does. Like, that's the point. Like, I mean, there's no limit on this card. So I mean, like, if you put it on a tough guy and like flipped like 3 double blacks because there's like a lot of them, like you'd have +6 defense. I mean, like you can't really argue with that, with the potential of like literally just even in a quote aggro deck, like what, I don't know what you would want to call it. I guess we'll call it that. Like blanking an opponent's entire attack is still pretty powerful. So I would imagine that a dedicated black deck, a dedicated blue black deck would definitely want to play this, just because because you can literally just blank your opponent's entire attack by like having random tough on a guy that like you're not really using for that reason, but it has it anyway type of situation. Or you could do it on purpose. But I mean, like you said, I mean, like, because it's a battle card, not an action that like is on a character, you can't build your deck around it because it's not green.
Right. Now, that being said, I mean, to your point about, say I was actually thinking in an aggressive deck as a pseudo, again, another unbashable force field, that we're hitting a point where there are a lot of non-star double black pip cards, whether even just outside of, obviously, if you're in the mercenary camp, you get extra ones that are beneficial, but you could hypothetically play this and then, what is it, Hold the Line, the white-green one that we just got recently?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then, okay, now you have 6, 3 of which are greenable secret actions that you could randomly break an inbound attack, hypothetically, because, if the numbers work out that you have a ton of double blacks. But I don't know. I don't know. Again, I like the concept. I don't know if I particularly like this implementation, because you have to just rely on finding it somehow in a deck that may or may not have the tools to dig deep enough to go find it.
Oh yeah, I mean that's fair, but I think it's fine. I think the Pierce, the dedicated Pierce decks like that, I think will basically operate to where they're, like I said, like they're your typical aggressive deck that deals like, guaranteed damage. So I mean, I think blanking an attack in an aggro matchup is still going to be important.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's fine. I mean, like, and then like if you're playing a plain deck, you're still getting another double black. So it's like it's better than a lot of the other double blacks, like as a card. So,
I mean, recently, because of other topics, we've had to look at Crowbar much more closely than I ever thought I would.
Right. I mean, like, I think it's better than like, some of those other ones. So.
Yeah. I can see a home for this. Like, I can concoct the scenario in my head. I don't know if that scenario is going to come to fruition, I guess is the best way I'd put it.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to rely on any battle card that isn't green, so I can understand
Yes. So let's move on from Concealing Contrails to another recently revealed Wave 5 spoiler, I guess was what I was saying in my head, but that's kind of redundant given the rest of the sentence that I said. So that is Conversion Expertise. It's a white pip utility that, while the upgraded character's in alt mode, it has tough one, and while the upgraded character's in bot mode, it has bold one. I don't know. What is it, combat training from Wave 1 that does something very similar?
You got both, though, I think, right?
If you met both conditions, yeah, but you had to have other things in play. I don't remember the exact text offhand, but
like if you had a weapon, you got bold, and if you had an armor, you got tough or something.
Right. Which you're probably not going to get both, I guess, in a normal game. On one hand, I can appreciate what it's trying to do with this card. On the other, I'm struggling to find a home for it immediately off the top of my head. Was this one that you were really enthused by, Scott?
No.
Yeah, it's I got nothing.
We got a lot of cards to talk about.
I think we can safely move on from this one. Yep. Sorry, I'm slurping a quick sip so that I don't pass out mid-cast. So Next one up is another recent one, and that is Counter Espionage. Now, this one would probably have a few more words to say. This is a black pip and a green pip. It's an action. You name an action, and then you look at your opponent's hand and each face-down enemy secret action. Your opponent scraps each card from among them with that name. Scott, I have a lot of things I could say about this, but I've took first crack at the last two. Let me hand it to you first.
I mean, this is clearly powerful.
Yeah.
It's
Well, let me put it this way. We've seen Espionage. Yes, you get a little bit more, but Scott, can you explain why this is so much better than Espionage?
because you get to hit your opponent's secret actions, and a lot of the ones that I think you'll probably see in some way, shape, or form are either very obvious targets, or they green them back themselves. Mm-hmm. So you should have a pretty good idea about what you're actually hitting. Like I mean, there's a good chance that you're just literally just canceling your opponent's entire action phase if they green back some action, like some secret action, like and then play the secret action. Like even if they like quote gotcha, like okay, like who cares? Like it's not the biggest deal in the world. So like there's a really good chance that you're just basically going to like negate their entire action phase if that's what they did with their green, or you have a pretty good idea what it could be. Or as we've said before, we said the same thing with secret actions themselves. Like you play it and it is like, it's fine. Like, like if your opponent gets around it, like then they get around it. Like if you stop them anyway, like, in the old, like you don't see a lot of this anymore, but like if you laid an infiltrate and they're like, their hands full of orange actions and they're like, I'm not going to play one. Haha. It's like, well, okay. Well, like, you did the same thing
didn't
anyway,
play
right?
one. Right.
Right. Like, so it's similar in this situation. Like, if you play this and you miss, but like, because
the thing you named
right?
was the dangerous one or the one you were worried about. So if they don't have it, well, okay, they don't have it.
Yeah. So I mean, that's just a universal use for it. I mean, and then the specific uses are like, there's a lot of characters that suffer greatly to certain secret actions. Like specifically like the weapon-based characters like really suffer to armaments. So like, your Spinisters and your Predikings will want this like in spades.
It's just, I'm sorry, I just have to laugh at Predaking. I want him to work so bad. Same with Spinister, because both the guys you mentioned, but yes, they do want this. I don't know if this is going to bring them back from the brink, but yes, you are correct.
Well, like there haven't been a lot of Battle Master decks in general because of armament either. So,
no, that's absolutely true.
I mean, I think this card's. I mean, honestly, I think the card's a little bit overrated because because people are like, I have to jam 3 of this in every deck I make, and I don't think that's true.
No. I think it may start out that way, just like every deck. Well, maybe not every deck, but a lot of decks were 3 of Espionage at the beginning of Wave 2, and then it petered out as the wave went on.
Yeah, I think I forget when we talked about this with the when I was listening back to the show last week, one of the shows last week. We talked about this with the like the anti-direct damage secret action, that like the fact that this exists warps the format enough to like you said about that card, like the fact that it existed is what was most powerful about it. I think that's probably what's most powerful about this, is the fact that like, so for example, like if you were going to run 3 hidden fortifications, 3 armaments in every blue deck, right? So now you may run 2 hidden fortifications and a hold down, or your sideboard against combo maybe 2 hijacks and 2 whatever the one was from last time, like
speed trap. Yeah.
So like it diversifies your secret actions you're going to play, and probably gives play to other secret actions that like maybe you didn't want to run hold down because it's an orange, but now there's a reason to, because
there's the threat that Counter Espionage could blow you out.
Right. So like that to me is the most powerful thing, is that like it's just going to force diversification of the secret actions that we actually see, and that's positive probably. Like now you could run like a hiding spot and a step forward instead of just one or the other. Like, so I think it just forces that, and I think that's really good. And I think just the fact that we have an anti-secret action card is good in of itself. So
I'll be honest, I was kind of surprised that it seemed like the the obvious thing to exist at some point, the anti-secret action. But by the same token, I'm kind of surprised that they did create one, that there isn't a, something that's untouchable. But I guess this does give them a pressure valve in that if suddenly there is a secret action that is super strong, okay, we'll just start running counter espionage if you're really that concerned. And then this way they don't have to cap the power level on secret actions necessarily as low as what they might have.
Right, that's fair.
To one of your earlier points, I think the obvious thing also to keep in mind is that Combo can run this as well to try and dodge secret actions. So it's something to keep an eye on. It is something I've been thinking about, we've been talking about in general, because, whereas before it was wait out a hijack or wait out the future speed trap or PTT around it, this gives you another way. And if played correctly, you could strip their response next turn. Obviously, they could draw another one. They could green something on defense. Or, depending on how you set up Springer turns, you could play this and go off through, air quotes, a secret action that they played because you rip the one away, and then you go off during your end step via conversion engine. It's going to be interesting because it's going to be a very delicate dance. And I think that this is... I could see it being awesome in that it's this interesting cat and mouse game, or it could, but it's a very fine line because it could very easily teeter off that razor's edge to the other side of the fence, and it's just, this is awful. So it's definitely going to be very interesting to see how this shapes up.
Yeah, I think the other side of it, the like regular old espionage-esque part of it is probably not as powerful as we've seen, but like it'll obviously have play against control decks and things like that, like any discard element would have. So.
Oh, absolutely. And it is something that, because it's future looking, so if you take the combo scenario as in combo playing counter espionage to address a secret action from the person opposing combo, it's also the same sort of scenario, just I guess with people hating one of the decks a little less. If, say, you're an aggressive build, you can, if you're going to be going into the wheel turn next one of your turns because you're wider than your opponent, you can try and strip away preemptively secret actions to limit their options. Plus, since you get a peek at their hand, even if you whiff, you know what secret action they played, most likely. So getting that extra information does have different useful facets.
There's no way in the game, though, other than other actions that actually allow you to see your opponent's hand in any way, though, right? I guess that new... The
one body lets you...
right.
Not espionage, but you know what I mean. Like, it lets you... I want to say duress, but that it lets you take a card from their hand.
Yeah. And then... I guess that new Decepticon thing...
The armor?
It wasn't like an armor that let you,
get an Autobot card, yeah.
Yeah. So you get to look at their hand and do it also?
Yeah, I think you look at their hand and choose an Autobot card, was the way it was worded.
So there are ways of, making this a guaranteed hit, then?
Yes.
Okay.
Not a huge amount, but yeah, there's definitely ways to do it.
Okay, that's good, then.
So I do like this card in general. I'm very curious to see where it because it does tread a fine line in a number of matchups where it could be similar to Espionage, where we think it's fantastic and then it peters out. But given the fact that it's the only thing that hits secret actions, I have a feeling we're definitely going to see a lot of it, especially initially.
Yeah, I agree.
So we'll move on from counter espionage into a pair of upgrades. The first one being Ghost Shield. So Ghost Shield is an orange pip armor that gives +3 defense, static. You can play this only to replace an armor on a character that has no empty armor slots. If an opponent's card would cause this to be scrapped from a character, you may scrap an armor from your hand instead. I really like this mechanic as a whole, Scott, but do you like the mechanic? Do you like the card? Do you care at all?
I like both, but the problem is playing it fairly is going to be difficult.
Oh, absolutely.
So, outside of like cards you're not going to play, like new designs,
Yeah.
it takes a lot of turns to like. It takes. The problem is to play it fairly. Like it's very easy, obviously, to get armors. Like 1 million of them are green, right?
Yeah.
And that's where most of the ones that see play come from. So like it's very easy to like replace an armor. That's not the problem. The problem is it's very difficult to when you actually look at deck lists nowadays competitively, like you only playing like 2 or 3 armors. So if you're in that situation, you have to up the number of armor counts because once this is down, you have to protect it. So to play it again,
You really
fairly,
need 3 armors. Counting this.
Right. So to play it fairly, you need to have drawn at some point when you play this a total of 3 armors before you play this.
Yeah.
One to replace, then this, then the third one at least one more to protect it. And obviously, again, like this is not hard because, like again, like there are the rock paper scissors armors. There's extra padding. There's
Jetfire.
Right, and that's what I mean. Like the unfair ways of playing this make it a hell of a lot better. Like you're gonna want to hunker down this. You're gonna want to wave 1 Jetfire this because then you need that just exponentially makes it so that every armor you draw or green back now is essentially a counter spell for whatever your opponent's trying to do to your armor. So undoubtedly it will see play in those decks. Undoubtedly it is by far a very powerful tank card.
Yeah.
For hunker down and like I mean
Aggro Tanks probably loves this card.
Oh yeah. And we keep saying that wave 1 Jetfire, but it never comes to fruition. So like
one day.
Yeah, we'll say it's good there, but in reality, like he can get back force fields and things like that, and it's never been good there either. But like I guess this is enough of an excuse because it stays around because it can stay around that it is very powerful. So like I guess there's a reason to explore that, but like to me this is I still think composite armor might be better, but this is like, probably not. I don't know. Like, this is obviously an insane tank armor.
Yeah.
I think you would probably run this in most defensive decks as like a one of, but what it means is that you have to up your armor count like to like at least 5, and I would say like every other armor you play has to be green, and then you have this. But I think in a late game situation where if you're playing some kind of control deck that also draws a lot of cards, I see no reason like not to play this card because unlike sort of unlike the other one that we'll talk about next, like this is above the curve. Like no armor can get this large. Like body armor can almost get this large. Like mathematically, but it still isn't. Like no, this is by far above the curve where I don't know that we can say that. The weapon is solid and does a lot of things that are above the curve, but its numbers are not above the curve. Like this is obviously like above the curve. Like it's technically a +3 with very little drawback. Other than you have to replace another armor, but like it has tremendous upside. So like I can't see how this is not going to see play. Even in the fair way that I set up that makes it difficult, I still think you would play it as a one of. So I fail to see how like this is not going to see a tremendous amount of play across the board.
Yeah, while you were explaining that, I looked up Galaxy Prime real quick just for the wording, which it does reference play specifically as opposed to put.
So we have to have another armor on him, that's all.
Correct, yeah. Which again is something that you're probably going to do anyway in that deck, but it is something where you, to your point about trying to play it the fair way, it's going to require some additional hoops, some additional hurdles in order to actually get it into play, let alone protect it.
Yeah, and like aggro decks are going to want this because again, like a lot of them are playing multiple bashing shields anyway, and so like if you're playing 3 bashing shields and like one other armor for whatever reason, like again, it's an orange. You can always just get out of your hand to go get another green, and if you actually put it in play, it's probably going to save you an attack. So like. Again, like this is really powerful to me across the board. So.
Yeah, I'm similar to what you said about Wave 1 Jetfire. I keep hoping for that tanks build, and each set we're inching a little bit closer. It's just a matter of whether the other decks are taking, instead of inch or strides measured in inches, they're taking strides measured in feet. And I'm hoping that it can close the gap or keep pace at the very least. And I think this is going to help it, because obviously throwing this on, say, a Demolisher is going to be funny. It may not be composite armor, like you said, a little bit worse, quote unquote, but it's close enough. I'm looking forward to trying this thing out, I guess, is the bottom line.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only negative I will say about it is that, like, you can do all those tricks with superior plating and no one does. So, like...
Yeah, I was going to bring that up.
Which, like, in a defensive deck is still going to be more powerful.
The difference here is that your tech research, I think, is the card that you have to actually play superior plating or any of the superior things. All of your armor are tech researches, so to speak. Yeah. And then also, obviously, that you could protect this from at least their first bashing shield reasonably. Yeah, I mean, the protection ability is ridiculous, and is clearly the most powerful part. It's just that, like, it requires setup by you to get it going, but I don't see a reason why that's a negative at all. So it's definitely going to be. I can envision games where it's going to feel like your opponent gets this early, however they do it, and then it just literally never goes away because they always have an armor, and it's going to be exceptionally frustrating when you play like your third bashing shield and this thing still won't die. Right. Mm-hmm. And that's going to happen. And the funny thing is because it's the higher static defense, bashing shield kind of has more value, because typically you value it at in air quotes, +2 compared to other armors. This is, since you'd be popping 3 defense, it's worth more. But that turn where you go to bashing shield and they pitch an armor, you're going to feel real bad. Yeah, like Jetfire loves this card. Galaxy Prime loves this card. So yeah. There are going to be decks running this card, that's for sure. Yeah. So it does also, therefore, lend more value to disruption, like hand disruption from aggressive decks as well, because then you can kind of, even if you counter Espionage and you can't literally strip an armor, you know that they have armor to feed this thing, and that's more information of what your plays should be. Sure. So I guess we can move on there from Ghost Shield after that. We'll move on to the other half of it, I guess, is Master Sword, which obviously all of the Legend of Zelda jokes came out of the woodwork. Mm-hmm. Master Sword is a blue pip weapon. It is static for attack, and it has a very similar card text where you can play this only to replace a weapon on a character that has no empty weapon slots. If an opponent's card would cause us to be scrapped from a character, you may scrap a weapon from your hand instead. I kind of wished it was named the Star Saber, but can't have everything. I was going to say the same thing. How random. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I get he's a character also, but like there is a weapon called the Star Saber, so I don't know. Anyway, more complaints aside, where do you feel this one fits, Scott? Do you think it's going to show up as commonly as its counterpart? Probably not. For a blue weapon, obviously it's above the curve. But like, is it that much better than Energon Axe? Obviously protecting it is what's really powerful, but like not getting the pierce. Enforcement batons is not as, I guess it is as common as Bashing Shield thanks to Airstrike Patrol, but you can dodge opposing armaments. I kind of agree with you that it's cool that it'll stick. I just don't know, in an aggro deck, A, being a blue pip, and B, how often are you guys living that you could replace somebody that had a weapon with this? I wouldn't play this I wouldn't play this in aggro deck because you can already get a +4 weapon anyway. Well, yeah, but then it's redundancy of +4 weapons. I always want more +4s when I'm playing orange. I just don't know if I want to go to this length for it.
I mean, it's fine. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I mean, in a lot of decks, there are weapons you want to replace. Like, your armed hovercraft isn't doing a lot after it does its ability.
Oh yeah, of course.
But then, like, you can't replace javelins. You can't replace grenade launchers. You can't replace.
Well, I mean, I guess you could just not throw the javelin. It's a May, but I don't know how often that's going to come up.
And so but I do think that blue control decks will want to play this as a one of, because again, like, it's a fine replacement for your hovercrafts. So like, that's where I think it's going to be like most powerful. It's also a fine replacement for like, decks that just run one batons to get the batons off the guy and back into the scrap pile. And then because most decks are running like, 8 to 9 weapons anyway, unlike armor where like you have to actually like adjust your deck to put more of them in, you're going to just have a redundancy of weapons anyway. So like the protection ability is going to come into play. I just don't know how big it is losing like the pierce off an Energon Axe, which is the obvious most powerful blue weapon.
Yeah.
But maybe if it's not that big of a deal, then like a lot of control matchups come down to like who draws and sticks the axe anyway. So like this is going to be who draws, and the ability to stick the weapon is going to be obviously built into the ability. So
yeah,
it's going to be powerful. So like control decks will definitely want this as at least a one of. So like I fail to see how like this won't see play. So yeah, I mean it seems good to me.
One of the things that came to mind as you were speaking was, is there a big enough difference between 11 and 12? So the reason I'm saying that is I'm picturing Octone. I mean, there are other examples, of course, but Octone specifically because I've been messing around, or, at least rolling around in my head, Octone and Soldier's Blaster, because it's a relatively consistent way to put him at 11 attack, because in general, you're not punching another mercenary. Additionally, if you were to, say, replace the Soldier's Blaster, okay, you can green back Soldier's Blaster to also feed this thing. Clearly not right away. You're probably only running one Soldier's Blaster or whatever. But it gives you another way to try and get this into play, the quote-unquote fair way, assuming we don't have another way to cheat it in. I just don't know if the difference between 11 and 12, even without the Pierce from Energon Axe in the Soldier's Blaster scenario, that it's enough. Maybe it is. I'd have to sit down and map it out, whether that really matters.
It's a protection, though. It's again, the control matchups coming down to who sticks the largest weapon is bigger than their opponent. So, like, that's where I think this comes into play.
Well, yeah, but in that scenario, I guess you could find room for a single Master Sword at some stage in your 40. But is it that much better than a Soldier's Blaster that you could just green as the replacement? I guess because of the pip it would be. So I guess you'd probably go that route, is where I'm coming to.
I think it would open up to like the green weapon you want to run is a more universal, like a baton in that situation, or in sided control decks, like, a Scoundrels or a Nobles. So like, I just think you're having more options. So I definitely see this being at least a one of in most control decks.
Yeah, I could see that. Chat's correcting me. Javelin isn't a May. I don't have it in front of me, so I'll take your word on it.
You can just not throw it. I mean,
well, they're saying it's not a May on the range side. Like, you have to throw it.
Oh, really? Okay, sure.
I mean, I can't think of a scenario where I didn't want to, so it
Sure.
never, like, and then they're also saying that the Master Sword was actually a named accessory that Fort Max came with in the Takara version, so that explains why it's Master Sword. I still would rather it was a Star Saber, but I get it. Fort Max is the set,
But is it sideswipe on both these cards, right?
No.
Oh, it's not? Okay.
Sideswipe can now mass shift, I guess. And he's humongous. I don't know.
Oh, is it Fortress of Maximus on both these cards?
Yeah.
Because it's the same character on both cards.
Right.
He has the armor and the weapon.
Right.
I thought it was sideswipe. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's Fort Max.
Oh, okay.
Chad will correct me as soon as we move on to a new card. So we'll move on. I'll get an answer. So next one up is Nitro Booster. This is another double Black Pip, except it's a Black Pip and a car Black Pip. It's a utility upgrade, and when the upgraded character attacks and has 3 or less attack, untap it and scrap this card. So you get a double Black Pip ready for action, sort of, but you have a different hoop to jump through. So we've seen the power of untaps before, but I guess they've kind of fallen off. Like, cars isn't the ubiquitous threat that it was in sets past. But this isn't, although it has the car Black Pip, it's not requiring you to literally use cars. You don't have to. See, other decks can get untaps to do interesting things. You love untaps, Scott, right? Like, you love this card or no?
If you get an orange in the middle of combat that turns you over, then the 3 attack, you don't get to do it, right? Like, oranges would count for this, right? It's not your base, like, printed attack, right?
I think it's going to be whatever you enter combat with. The reason I say that is, so it says when the upgraded character attacks, and so I think there's a window of when attacks, then like you're entering combat, then you flip afterwards, I think.
If that's the case, then this is a lot better than I thought it was. Because then you can basically attack with a 3 attack guy without a weapon on them, or somehow a lower attack guy with a weapon on it. And
I mean, sure, maybe if you play one of the battle patrol guys, like the tank, the one attack tank.
Yeah. And then if your oranges don't count, then that's going to be positive, because you're basically getting like up to 5 and then getting to untap. So like that makes this a lot better if that's the case.
Yeah, and then it lends itself to obviously we're talking a hypothetical orange-black build, that bold effects would then be more valuable than static attack buffs for obvious reasons, because then you can actually artificially, I guess, inflate your attack value after you miss the window, if that's how it works.
I mean, if that's how it works, doesn't like kickback really like this then? I mean, like, obviously, like, I mean,
yeah,
because if you untap right away, you're not even vulnerable to be attacked back. So, like,
right,
if that's the case, then this will see a lot more play. So I think it just depends on, which I assume it does work that way. And then this is pretty powerful then, because I don't even care about the car part of it. I just care that, like, you can find like the Demolishers, the Lionizers, the kickbacks of the world are going to really want this card. It could be a blank vet. It could be a blank vet at that point, for all I care. I guess it's just an upgrade ready for action at that point. So, like, at that point, you're just getting redundancy.
You can treasure hunt for your ready for action.
Right. So at that point, if that's the case, then this is a lot more powerful than that. And, like, pretty much any deck that's, like, bold-based, small guy, anything will want this. I really don't care that it has that card thing at all at that point.
Yeah. It let's just assume the worst case scenario, just so we cover all bases. If orange pips screw with this, is this something you're never going to look at again?
I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing it out of a black base deck then at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's nothing wrong with basically assuring that you're doing 3 damage all the time.
Yeah, if you were a blue-black deck, or even a black pick focus deck.
Right. Then at that point, it's still fine. But I think at that point at that point, like, the other untaps are probably just going to be better, right? I mean, because you should be...
I think then, so something like, and I saw somebody say this offline, the Decepticon Sports Car Patrol, so it's not just an untap. It's a piercing blaster and untap, which sounds stupid, but if you're a black pip focused deck, guaranteeing that damage and untapping could be important. Hypothetically, I guess. I don't know.
no matter how you slice it, it's always going to be an upgrade untap. So it's always going to be like a way of getting the ability out of an upgrade instead of an action. So I still think it's going to be positive no matter how you slice it. It just, if it winds up being where either the orange pips don't count, or I mean, just in general, like it's going to be very difficult to like bigger they are a guy and then be able to use this.
Yeah.
So like I still think it's going to be powerful, but like especially in those other if the oranges don't count, but like even then, like you have to be careful because you're going to be limited to like a lot of, and this probably isn't a bad thing, but like bold based actions at that point instead of like reckless charging, bigger they are, things like that, which is fine. I mean, like I think the game is always striking a balance between static stats and off, flip stats. So
right,
it's probably intentional.
Well, I think that it, like you said, because it's an effect outside of turbo boosters, I can't think of anything else. I mean, I guess there's that micromaster thing that untaps too, but
right, it's blank and terrible. Right?
Yeah, this does it in two unique ways. One, it's an upgrade, so it's rarer, and that's I guess I'd have to look at the card list, but I'm going to say for the sake of argument, it's rarer. It also untaps things right away. So to your point about the kickbacks and those things, a ready for action, a start your engines, a whatever required that the character that got out there survived a hit. And that's, in the modern world, that's not necessarily a guarantee, even for higher health pool, higher defense characters, because sometimes your opponent just unloads on them and cripples them. Or if you went second, they punch that guy and now they're already damaged, so they don't have to hit quite as high of a ceiling. Yes, this is on a 3-attack character, but like you said, there are things like kickback, lionizer, etc. that could still punch hard enough and then still remain safe, because hiding behind shrapnel, as we've seen, is pretty good.
This will be insane if that's the way it's, and I'm pretty sure it will be ruled that way, and this will be insane in my opinion.
Yeah, there's a lot of potential for this, and even if it works out or goes the less powerful route, like you were saying, I think there's still opportunities there for this thing to make a splash regardless. So I expect that Nitro Booster is going to have a home somewhere.
Yeah, agreed.
So we'll move on from Nitro Booster. That's actually going to close out the battle cards, and then we need to get the new bodies that we've been introduced to. So the first one up is Fangry, which was fantastic because we did, in speaking with Drew, he did indicate that there were going to be more heads than bodies. Fangry, for some reason, was in my head at the time, even though he is now a body, but it's cool that they're reaching for some of these other characters. Since there weren't going to be any, well, not that there aren't any, but only 3 reprint characters, reoccurring characters. It's fun that they're pulling in some of these other, I guess, lesser known guys. I don't know if Fangry counts as widely known or not.
He was one of the original headmasters, right?
I mean, he was, but I don't know. It's one of those things that when you talk to a lot of people and you ask them about Transformers, if they said they were a fan, most people jump to who you expect in the movie cast sort of thing. And then I feel like everybody, the next largest chunk is probably like Beast Wars people, as opposed to people that were real excited about Headmasters. But I know there is a faithful contingent for them. But anyway, enough of a digression. We'll talk about Fangry Sky Tracker. So he's yet another member of the Beast Tribe. He's melee. He's a 4/11/2. He's 6 stars, which I think is the smallest body we've seen.
It's tied with another one we're going to talk about.
Well, coming into this, yeah.
I think two of them we're going to talk about, actually.
Yeah. While this is attacking an enemy that has more stars than him, he has Bolt 2. And then in his body mode, he's also melee 4/11/2, and while this is defending against an enemy that has fewer stars than him, he has Tough 2. Let's talk about the body mode first, Scott. Do you feel that this guy, like, does that body mode do anything for you?
Oh, the body mode is fewer? I thought it was still, I think they were both greater.
No, it's fewer than him, so he only has tough against tinier guys.
No, don't ever flip this guy ever. Who cares?
Yeah, that's why I wanted to get that one out of the way. So let's then talk about the alt mode, the other mode, the much more interesting visually mode, because we got a werewolf with bat wings, and as the toy that I'm holding, you can also turn into a little dragon. Anyway, so Barrage.
Yeah, this guy's awesome. I mean,
Barrage.
This guy's super cheap. I mean, you don't like. I know we constantly are talking about, and I know it's in my head always thinking about like the 1-star heads, but like you don't want this guy to be higher in cost anyway due to his ability.
I mean, this is very much one of those. I don't want to call it. I don't want to call it a breadcrumb card, because I know there's another term, but that sort of thing where I really feel like Wizards is use the 1-star head, guys. Like, use that one.
Is he 411-1 or 411-2?
411-2 in that mode.
So he's like a better Barrage when you put the bold head on him.
Yeah. I mean, with the whole static versus bold thing, but obviously, you're gonna be playing certain things to, and by that I mean you're gonna be playing oranges to make sure that he's hitting the right stuff.
I mean, and you get the head later, so like, this guy's like. I mean, I think the Decepticon, and we'll obviously do a show rounding up all the Titan Masters at the end, but like,
and that one will also be 6 hours.
But the Decepticon Titan Masters that are introduced this week, specifically that we're talking about, are all super powerful to me, and I think this is like really, really this is powerful in my opinion.
Yeah, I really like this guy, and it seems fairly straightforward. So let me ask you this, Scott. Outside of the bold one, chat's saying run him with Clobber, who we haven't gotten to yet.
Then he costs too much.
Right, that is the concern. But are there any scenarios where you want a larger head? Do you see any reason that it would show up in? I mean, we were talking about blue bolt decks a number of times, or these black pip decks. Is your mind solely all in on orange for this guy right now?
When I thought the body mode allowed you to defend against higher guys, not lower, I thought you could do the blue-black route, but not anymore. Now it's just solely orange, because now that mode doesn't mean anything to me, so I would just go with the... Yeah.
I mean, there is the potential, since I know you were all hyped on Overwhelming Advantage a while back. It's another innate bold guy that's a Decepticon, so...
Yeah, I mean, this guy's super powerful. Like, I don't... Like, I mean... You just stick the bold head on him and you're good to go. Like,
yep.
There's just no doubt about it.
It's a pretty simple plan. Step 1, attach bold head. Step 2, profit. Or something like that. That's not how the meme goes, but it's close enough.
Yes. There's no underwear involved. Yes.
yes. And, I should have expected that, and I still almost spit my tea out. Anyway, so any other thoughts on Fangry? I know this one, it's funny because like some of the bad cards we were real short on, but this one's really solid. It's just like, okay, just play this guy.
No, I mean, to me, 6-cost Titan Masters are awesome because they just give you so many options and basically allow you to like see the ability for what it is, and it's probably the starting point you want to be at. And this is just such a simple. You get to attack with a giant guy, and then you get a head that also gets a giant attack off himself. Like, I think this will be like one of the standout ones because it's just so obvious as to how much damage potential this character with the head has, like as an overall unit, that like it's almost impossible to mess it up. Yeah. So,
and again, I really appreciate that it's on Fangry of all characters, because while I do love all the Transformers, there are ones that I'm obviously more attached to than others, and Fangry is just he's amusing to me. And I'm looking forward to playing with him just from a outside the game perspective. I think it's going to be fun to slam him on the table.
Yeah, I remember the famous comic art from like the Headmaster series where he's like all spitting out and shit like that. So
yeah, this one, the art on this is awesome. Like they made it look like fur on the parts, and they have the full moon in the background, and Fangry's pretty cool. Not gonna lie.
Mm-hmm. Is he rare?
He is rare. Yes.
Sweet.
I wonder why you're excited about that. But we'll move on from Fangry. We'll save that for another time and move on to Horrible, who again is one of the characters that I really appreciate. So Horrible Ground Trooper is a beast melee, 392, 6 stars. When you flip to alt mode, move 1 damage counter from this to an enemy. And then in body mode, melee, 491. When you play a black pip card, do 1 damage to an enemy and 1 damage to this, aka the body. So this is one of the ones I'm sure you're referring to earlier that, rivals the low body cost. We got this one chronologically first before Fangry, I believe, and I remember seeing this and being really excited about potential for him. The first thing that came to mind was some insane combo-based thing because you could stack a bunch of damage and then just go, oh, look, my guy's dead, but I have 50 triggers if you concoct a way to do that. Haven't figured out how exactly I'm going to do that yet, but the potential is there. What less obscene concoctions did you have in mind for this guy, Scott?
I mean, just the amount of incremental advantage you're going to gain off this in either sided deck.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it turns all your black plate cards into zaps.
Yeah.
I don't care about the 1 damage going on him.
He's probably gonna die against an aggro deck, at least for sure, within the first hit anyway. He only has, in that mode, a total of 10 health.
Well, I mean, you get the head.
Well, yes, that's fair. Depending on which head you attach to him, it could be different, but he's still not he's not the most sturdy character, we'll put it that way.
And he's 6 base, he's 6 base, right?
6 base, yes.
Yeah. So, again, the only downside of him is that he's flip intensive, but you can definitely. It is very easy to have turns where you play a black base weapon, you play a black based ability, and then you flip him, and you basically just
one shall stand at somebody.
better one shall stand at somebody because you only wound up taking 1 in the end because you transferred 1 of the damage over.
Yeah.
So you just 3 damage for 1 across their spread out however you want. I mean
yeah,
that's pretty good.
Yeah, chat's. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I mean, not to mention the inborn combos with Detritus, Sound Blaster, because they all play the cards also. So that also re-triggers this.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of potential to cheat this ability as well, outside of just basically, again, one shall standing every other turn. Again, assuming we still haven't seen a flip effect for the bodies to alt mode. But,
well, it's funny you say that because Chats was saying showing off, but yeah, we've mentioned on numerous occasions in the past that the hypothetical showing off for bodies, which the more we see of this set, it feels like an inevitability, which means for me at the same time I start doubting it. I'm like, well, they'll probably do that next set kind of thing.
I mean, showing off with this guy is basically double flinging, which is not, it just turns showing off into a fling, which is not as good because it's not black.
Right. Well, it was the showing off effect. If, hypothetically, if there's a showing off with for the bodies, that's a black pip would be awesome.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. But I mean, we just talked about whatever that Cobalt Therapy thing is. That's black.
Counter Espionage, yeah.
Yeah. The only downside is playing a face down secret action will not trigger this. Just keep that in mind.
Yeah, because they are blank.
But I mean,
shout out to Wave 2 Skywarp.
Right. But I mean, Steady Shot, Rock Toss, all these, composite armor, they don't all have to go on him. They just have to be played in a turn. And the amount of incremental advantage you're going to get off this guy is just ridiculous. This guy is really awesome, in my opinion. This set is very anti, Scrapnel especially, but just very anti,
Well, we were just talking about how nasty bugs could be if they get an untap, so here's one of your solutions.
I mean, wedge formation, drawing a card and repairing, and planning, all these I mean, we've talked in the past about how the black cards seemed like they were I guess, like overcosted for what they did. A lot of times the dual pip ones,
just a scotch underpowered.
Yeah, but when you're turning all your black cards into zaps, I mean, come on, like
seems okay.
Awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
It's funny you said wedge formation because Chad did bring that up as well. Special delivery, which is also kind of funny. They won't quite. So if you have no damage on him, you special delivery. Special delivery is going to go off, and then you do the trigger for him. So you do have to like change your timing a bit, but it's as simple as, okay, well, I'll play a black pip weapon first, then special delivery, then do it again, sort of thing. And it doesn't have to be things played to him either, which is really cool. Right. So it's you just sit this guy in the back, let him, do his thing for a couple turns, and then you send him out there, and then he pops his head off, and you go on with your life.
Yeah, I think the fact that he can be in either sided deck is what's really powerful. I mean, he's awesome in aggro, and then he's like pretty awesome in control. So like, the only downside of him is that like he's probably going to be a low star, quote unquote, like mid to low star character on your team, and he's flip intensive. So like that's the only downside of him, but like as long as you can work around that, I think it's fine.
I'll be honest, I don't know how much you're going to use his flip to alt. I mean, obviously you want to, but I kind of envision the normal play pattern with him just going to be I flip him on one, I play, if I'm going second, I play a black pip card, get in. On two, I play 2 black pip cards, I send him in. And it's like, all right, well, I've gotten a free 3 damage just by advancing my board, as long as he's not going to die to direct damage himself as a result of you self-damaging, which he shouldn't, unless if they went after him first. That's probably fine. I don't know how, like you said, to the flip intense, I don't know how much you're going to be flipping him back and forth. Like,
that's fair.
There certainly are, well, I was going to say there are characters that are big that don't want to flip, but they are kind of few and far between.
Usually flip once, but I mean, like a nemesis type situation. But like,
but
like Bludgeon loves this guy. Like this guy's awesome with Bludgeon.
He seems okay with Bludgeon.
I mean, you're like doing 4 with him with Bludgeon if you play a black weapon and a black upgrade in the same turn. Like that's insane.
Seems okay.
Yeah, like
seems okay.
This set at times is very self-contained. Like we talked the last time about Windsweeper with Sky Shadow. Like this guy with Bludgeon seems pretty self-contained within the set and like a pretty powerful combo. So
absolutely, yeah. He, I appreciate Horrible's presence and what he's gonna do. I expect to see him a fair amount, and I'm excited to try him out too. Like it's echoing the same points, but I think the fact that all those black pips that we've been wondering for so long, like you said, that why is this just like the black pip is a hindrance, and it's to carry all this extra weight for the cost. Now we have a pretty good reason as to why that's the case. I wonder, was this effect on another bot earlier in development, and then it got shoved onto Horrible later in development? Like it got shoved out of the Black Pip set or initial sets and ended up here, or was it later on after they said, oh yeah, well maybe Black Pips aren't quite where we want them to be, we'll give them a boost. I'm curious what that timeline was.
Yeah, it makes sense.
But anyway, any other thoughts for Horrible?
No, I mean, just be on the lookout for more cards like Master Metallicato that just have a black pip stuck on them that, like, you really barely use it, but, like, oh, by the way, you still get to do a damage, so.
Yeah, because it doesn't matter if it's actually a black pip in combat. He only cares if you play it, so.
Right.
Pretty sneaky there. All right. Yeah. We'll move on to our last card for this section. As you'd imagine, we're going to split this into 2, and I'm going to make it a little bit easier for editing. So our last one is Decepticon Quake. Another body. He is tank and ranged in alt mode. He's 7 stars. 4/8/3. While this is your only character on the battlefield, he has +2 attack. And then over in body mode, he's ranged. 5/8/2. When this or another character is KO'd, do 1 damage to each character. We've already had the self-damaging theme with Cup as one of the other bodies. I'm sure there will be other things that are going to trigger based on doing that self-damage. You love direct damage, Scott. Take it away.
So, just to make sure, when another character is KO'd, he does take 1 damage.
When this, do each other. So no, he will not take damage if one of your other guys croaks while he's on the board.
See, that's not how I read it, but okay. Like, because the each is in capitals for some weird reason, so I figured.
Well, they're doing that because I've seen this I think Magic started doing this too, but a lot of games have picked up on this where I guess newer players, it's like, well, why would I ever damage my own guys? Or I think the base assumption for a lot of you've never played a card game before is that, like, you can't hurt your own stuff. Like, friendly fire is off, so you can't ever damage your guys, and I think that's why. But it does say each other character. I would assume that means he can't poke himself.
See, I just took it as, well, I guess if the character's KO'd, it can't damage itself. So I guess that does make sense. I don't know. It's hard to.
Yeah, I mean that does bring up the one obvious question that I saw a lot of people ask of the timing between him dying and the head coming off. The assumption right now, which I don't think has been officially said, is that you just stack them appropriately so that, oh yeah, deal 1 to everybody, then my head hits the board.
Yes. Yeah, that's how it works. You stack it in a way that you don't have the head take damage. You could if you want to, but you just
don't play those 1 health heads.
yes. I mean, this guy's stats are ridiculous. His attack and defense stats are ridiculous. I thought he was 6 base. He's 7 base.
He's 7 base. Yeah, okay. So I love the symmetrical ability in body mode because I think you said it offline, Scott. These sort of things are very commonly leveraged in card games, that you can find ways to either take advantage of the self-damage or mitigate the self-damage, and therefore you're never hurting yourself with these sort of things. It's any kind of everybody gets this thing or this happens to everybody. You come in with that advantage. You know it's going to happen, so you build your deck to address it and deal with it. I don't know. I wasn't thrilled with him otherwise, just because of the base 8 health, and I feel like we're going to be going into a world where there's going to be a lot of direct damage.
Yeah, but he helps that. I mean, like, he's ranged in both modes. He has 3 defense. I could care less about his last guy on the battlefield thing. That's so random. I can't even.
I don't know. I don't know much about Quake, to be perfectly honest. I'm assuming there's some last stand sort of story with him.
Yeah, but his body mode is extremely aggro friendly.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you attack a guy for, like, let's just say like 8, because you put a bolt head on him, and then you get to tag their whole, like, then you get to, like, better squish them like bugs, like, that doesn't see much play. Like, I mean, he just, anytime you can gain extra advantage off of just advancing what you want to be doing, there's no downside whatsoever. He obviously combos with, like, the last 2 characters we talked about, just because of his low cost and then their low costs. And there's a lot of synergy there. Like, he's ranged, so, like, you have hovercrafts and javelins and all the ways to, like, KO guys outside of combat, so that his ability triggers again.
Yeah, I was gonna say him. How many stars is Bludgeon? 11.
Yeah, him and Bludgeon are insane.
Well, I was gonna say it's gonna be pushing it star wise, but a like Bludgeon PTT somebody with this to set up another turn. And you do direct damage on that turn too. Like, yeah, there's a number of ways, again, like I was saying, to break the symmetry of his body mode effect.
Yeah, and I just, I'm trying to think of it. There's never really been an ability like this that, like, I think there is another one that we're going to talk about.
That does what?
Remember correctly. that does something similar to like after you KO a guy. Oh, that's right. It's the whirl ability.
Yeah.
I mean, like again, it's just like the other characters. Like, I mean, not so much Fangery because he's just insane, like stats wise, but it's very similar to Horrible. Like, you're just advancing your board and damaging other characters on your opponent's side of the field. Like, there's zero downside to this whatsoever, other than I guess technically your other guys are getting damage, but you can just use that to your advantage. So
it's like when we talked about Scouting Mission, the ping pep talk, that yes, damaging your guys is bad, question mark, but as we've seen way back when in Wave 1, as early as Static Laser of Ironhide, if you're playing an aggressive deck, and maybe even in other builds, depending on what you do, who cares? like who cares? You're getting free damage, like you said, for advancing your board plan. If your guys are going to die, this guy is going to give you another body via the head. If there's a wide build to make this happen, great. Like, there has to be a way to do something with this.
I mean, you don't want it in your own against Y team, so you don't want it in a Y team because you don't want your entire side of the board being hovercrafted all the time.
I mean, you don't, but at the same time, it depends on what matchups you're running up against, because again, the one damage may or may not matter. Like, if your guy's gonna die anyway, you can hovercraft them too, and it's when this or another character, so it's even their characters dying.
Oh yeah. That's what's good about it. Because, like I said, you attack for basically 8 damage, KO some small guy, and then ping their whole board.
Yep.
I mean, turns on barrage, turns on this is in that trio, and I'm glad we did them 3 in a row. That I think, I mean, we'll get to this later, but there are certain Titan Masters I really like, and like all 3 of these Decepticons I really like.
Yeah, I am pleasantly surprised that Team Purple has gotten a series of characters that were very interesting. Not that they haven't before, but it definitely, like, I'm really excited to try each of these guys out.
Yeah, which is funny because to me, in the lore, quote unquote, I always felt like it was like, oh, the Decepticons just like the Autobots did the ability, and the Decepticons were like, yep, we're coming too for along for the ride.
Yeah.
In this for the Headmaster ability, and I feel like other than like Perceptor and Cup, I feel like the advantage here is on the Decepticon side.
It's now shifted, yeah. I can get behind that idea. Quake is definitely going to be interesting, but I'm more excited, I think, for the other two, even though Fangery, I guess, in the grand scheme of things, is very, we'll say, plain, I guess, because I smash stuff good, but Horrible and Quake present some unique options to try and leverage parts of the game that, to this point, I mean, that wasn't really a thing for each of their respective abilities.
I mean, it was poorly, like, through Slipstream, yeah.
Well, sure. We'll go with that. I don't really have anything for Slipstream. It's been a while since I was excited about Slipstream. I'll say that. So before we close up on this half, Scott, any thoughts about any of the reveals that we've covered so far? Any additional thoughts, I guess?
No, like I said, this is a powerful batch, so.
Yep. So we're going to close up this half. Stay tuned for the second half where we're going to cover the remainder of the reveals. But as always, everyone, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And please tune in next time for more Tech Talk.